Welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. On this Davinci Resolve tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do slow motion within Davinci Resolve. Now, the methods I'm going to show you here are the very simple, basic ways to do this, and there are many different approaches that you can take to achieve the same thing. However, I want this to be very easy for people who've never done this before. Now, there are a couple things that you want to do first before you start editing your project. The first being that the videos that you have, try to make sure that they are 60 frames per second or higher. And the general reason you want that is the more frames that you have, the smoother your slow motion is actually going to be. And second to that is your actual project settings. So if you go to File, Project Settings, make sure that your timeline frame rate is lower than your high frame rate videos. So in this case, I have it at 24 frames per second. And going back to what I said earlier, the more frames that you have, the smoother your slow motion is going to be. And since this timeline frame rate is lower than your videos, it's just going to have a lot more to work with instead of trying to create frames that aren't there or just have it at the same frame rate as your actual video. And so those are the two basic things that you want to have first. Have videos that are 60 frames per second or higher, and make sure your timeline frame rate is at a lower frame rate than your videos. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it at 24 frames per second. Okay, so now that we have gotten our clips ready and our project settings ready, now we're going to go ahead and bring in our clips. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring in my 60 frames per second clips, or one clip, bring it in here. Now, the first thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to change your project frame rate settings over to whatever frame rate that your videos has? So if you recall, we had this set at 24 frames per second. And our video in this case is 60 frames per second. So in this case, we're not going to change it. We're going to leave the project timeline frame rate at 24 frames per second. However, our video is still going to be 60 frames per second. So we're going to say don't change. So if we bring down the 60 frames per second video down here, and I just play this, everything should play like normal. And at the same time, since this is 60 frames per second in a 24 frame rate per second timeline, it looks kind of weird. If you pay attention, there's actually more frames that are available than the timeline. So sometimes things move just a little bit faster. But overall, this is the normal speed. And now we can actually adjust this. So the first and easiest way that you can adjust the speed of the video is to choose the clip. You could either do it here or do it up here. It doesn't matter where you do that. So if we come down here to our clip, right click, and then you go to clip attributes, you could change the video frame rate. So the current for this video is the original 59.94, so basically 60 frames per second. And now I'm going to choose 24 frames per second. So I'm saying okay. And now let's go ahead and check out this video again. And you'll notice things are slower. So that is really easy to do. And as you can see there, got some cool slow-mo. And since this video was originally 60 frames per second, the slow motion would look a lot smoother than if you had an original 24 frames per second and then you slowed that down. So as you can see, that is like the easiest way for you to slow down your videos. So now let's look at the more, I would say, advanced way to do things. And it gives you more control as well. So I'm going to right click on my mouse, and then on the clip attributes, I'm going to go back to the original 59.94. I'll say okay. Just watch that again, make sure it works. Okay, cool. So now let's use the more advanced technique. And it's going to give you more flexibility overall. So once you have your clip selected, right click, and then go to Retime Controls. So what this is going to allow you to do is change the speed. But not only that, you're going to be able to change some other things as well. So if you look down here, there's this thing that says 100%. And you see these markers. So there's like arrows. So that tells you that Retime Controls are on. And now if you just watch it, everything's normal. It's at 100% speed. But you can change this. So if you go here to where the 100% is and this down arrow, you click on it. Now you're going to see additional Retime Control settings. So the first thing you can do is change the speed. So there's some defaults here. 10%, 25, 50, 75, up to 800%. And so we're going to go ahead and do 50% right now. So let's go ahead and watch this again. And as you see, things are slower. So let's go back to the beginning where you could see it at the beginning. So it's slower. And it looks very similar to what we had before. But I really feel whenever you're using the retime controls, it's actually smoother. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. So that's one thing that you could do. And then another thing is the actual audio itself. So you'll notice that whenever you do slow motion, the audio does change. It slows down. But there's ways that you can also change this as well. So if you listen to this now, let's listen to this audio. Okay, so that's, you know, should sound weird because it is in slow-mo, but it doesn't sound exactly right. You know, what you were used to whenever things are in really slow motion, it'll go like, whoa, you know, that type of stuff. So what Davinci Resolve does, it does this thing called pitch correction. So it tries to change the volume in terms of like try to match it up to the video. Okay, now if you actually go here to the 50%, choose this down arrow, you see its default is pitch correction. Okay, so if you don't want pitch correction, uncheck it, and now you're going to notice that the sound is different. So when you play this again, see, it's a lot slower and it's lower as well. So let's show you that again. We'll go ahead and turn pitch correction on, play it again. You see, there is definitely a difference. I personally like to turn pitch correction off. Okay, so go back here. Let's turn it off. And then there is another thing that you could do with retime controls. You can actually add different speed points. Okay, so say for example, at the beginning or wherever you want to clip, you don't want it to be in slow motion. You just want it to be at its normal speed. Let's just say from here to here, you want it to be its normal speed. You will go down here to your, you know, percentage marker. And now what you want to do is add a speed point. So it's going to add a speed point right here. And now you have two different speed points. This is 50%. This is 50%. So I'm going to add another speed point right here. So we'll go back here. Add a speed point. So here I want this to be at 100%. So reset to 100%. And then here, I might speed things up a little bit. Let's just say 200%. All right. So now let's go ahead and watch this. We'll watch it from the beginning. Everything is its normal speed. And then we get to our slow motion and things slow down at whatever percentage that we had here. And then over here, it goes from slow motion, and then once it hits the speed point, it's going to go 200% faster. So that's really cool. And this kind of leads into speed ramping. So I'll get into another episode talking about that in more detail. And then another thing that you could do with this is, if you notice, it's kind of abrupt whenever it gets to this speed change. You know, it just changes really quickly and it's not quite as smooth. Okay, so the way that you can actually smoothen this out is right here under your inspector, under video, retime and scaling. Just go ahead and click on this or double click on it. You're gonna have more controls, and on this retime process you could choose optical flow. Okay, so this is gonna try to smooth things out better, and as you play it, you see that whenever it transitions from one speed to another, it's actually gonna look smoother. So you can play around with that. For fast website hosting and top-notch service and features, check out Siteground, the preferred service news at geekoutdoors.com. For more information, check out the affiliate link in the description area below. And see. So those are like the main things that you could do using the retime process and also using the clip attribute process. And you know, there's other things that you could try as well. There's motion estimation. So the further down you go, the better the actual slow motion is going to look. You know, it's kind of similar to this optical flow, but it's additional settings that you could adjust. And so as you go higher, it's going to require more processing power. And there's also scaling as well. So I really don't mess with this at all. And then there's also a resize filter as well. And so this will require more processing power depending on what you use. But typically, all I really do is choose Retime Process Optical Flow. And sometimes I use motion estimation, and I'll probably use enhance faster or enhance better. You know, if you go down to speed warp, it's going to require more processing power. So you can just play around with it, see what works best for you. But as you can see here, just from these two main methods, it's very easy for you to not only add slow motion, but at the same time, you could control where your slow motion or even where your fast motion occurs, and even how the audio sounds as well. So that is it for this particular tutorial on the very simple and basic way to do slow motion within DaVinci Resolve. If you actually had any thoughts on this or any other ways in which you do slow motion, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And if you did want to see more of my DaVinci Resolve tutorials and tips, I do have a playlist. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Go Content Creators group, where you'll get access to additional videos and content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Go Content Creators group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side.